GameStop reports revenue decline amid broader gaming slump. So what the article says is GameStop posted the biggest quarterly drop in revenue in 2 years. Net sales fell 8.5% to 1.19 billion, lower than the analyst projections of 1.39 billion. The company's still valued at $7 billion, by the way. But it seems, and this is not from the article, this is my words. It seems that Ryan Cohen, who was sort of, was held up as the savior of GameStop, I'm not seeing a turnaround here. Now, we know that, spending is down a little bit from COVID days, but it feels like they haven't been able to turn their business around. Now, the article does say GameStop's retail business was obviously hurt by COVID, but they haven't been able to make this transition to digital sales, obviously. So they're also cutting more jobs at GameStop, which is unfortunate. I'm curious to get your thoughts, guys, on the results here from GameStop. And, is there still sign of life? Is Ryan Cohen massively overrated here and hasn't been able to save this? Like, what is the thinking or the feeling here relative to GameStop's latest quarter?
I mean, I guess the results seem somewhat in line. Like, if you just think about top level, I mean, you have very few new games coming out this year. So sales are down. Consoles are either hard to find. Also, you have the supply chain issues, kind of having a little bit of macroeconomic issues like recession. So I can imagine consumer spending on these big luxury items might be a bit down. So none of that is altogether surprising. What's shocking is that they're still $7 billion market cap, because they should be like, I don't know, $700 million market cap maybe. But yeah, to your point, I mean, I don't see anything. It's now been, a year and a half,
2 years?
At least since Ryan Cohen. Yeah, like it's been almost 2 years since Ryan Cohen kind of came on, and we just haven't seen anything that innovative. I mean, as you're scrolling through the article, I saw he did some stuff with crypto. Obviously, that probably hasn't gone well, carrying FTX gift cards. Whatever. A lot of people have egg on their face, I guess, around that one, but just doesn't feel like they've done anything innovative, really, is to use a buzzword.
Hit it on the head, Jeff. There's no innovation. I mean, they were really cool when I was 13 and I would go in, when I was walking around the mall with my mom and kind of seeing what they had. That was also maybe early Amazon days where there were mostly only books, on Amazon. I couldn't buy most of my games online. I just don't know what the only thing that's different with GameStop's business today than what it was 10 years ago is they added a bunch of Pop Funko dolls and cheap t-shirts. But like, that's not going to save a business alone. This is a company that was trading around $3 a share before, Wall Street bets and all the meme stocks sent it to the moon. And the only upside that it had at that time was the pending release of new gen consoles, which some people theorize would bring in moms and other people into the store to get those consoles for their kids for presents. But otherwise, everything that GameStop does can be found online. So the fact that it ever went well beyond that, I think $11 a share mark, to me, I mean, I'm not an analyst like you guys, but it was just outrageous to see what it was trading for versus what the memes did to it versus what they failed to really innovate or do since then. I haven't really seen anything that lets me believe that it's half as successful as it's trading as. And I honestly don't know what's propping it up. This is a company I haven't financially supported through buying a game or buying a gaming related toy or accessory personally in maybe 10 years. So it perplexes me that they're still around. I thought the one saving grace here, and I loved Paul's idea of converting GameStops to like these mini land centers and malls, because one of the cooler parts that GameStop used to offer, things that they used to offer, were demos of games, right? They had those gaming setups like you would see at a Walmart, like a gaming setup that you would see at the end of an aisle where you could try something, and GameStop did offer that. But even that was kind of removed in exchange for selling limited edition figurines and toys. And again, all of this stuff probably easier and cheaper to get online. So, what's differentiating them from any of their competitors? I can't put my finger on it. And that's, to Jeff's point, there's no innovation there.
Yeah, I want to add on to that a little bit because I just became aware of a company that's doing something that I thought is what GameStop would be doing or somewhat in line with that. That whole idea of they've built out the retail network. How can they best take advantage of that at the current moment? The company's called Immersive Game Box, and it's essentially an interactive way to game with friends through a smaller piece of technology. It's like sort of like a hat. I don't know exactly how to explain, but you co-op games together and not an AR VR environment. It's sort of like a mix of an escape room and VR gaming, like all in one. Super cool company, expanding extremely rapidly, and I thought that was the type of experience GameStop should be going after. And we've been talking about them doing that for about 2 years, and now they've waited so long even on that aspect that there's a competitor in that space. So even now, their retail space is something that's far less interesting with what's being done and innovated on within the market. So I don't know that I always have faith when new leaders come in, especially leaders who have a track record of growing companies and doing great things. It's always a kind of cautious optimism. I didn't expect Ryan Cohen to come in and immediately turn the company around or anything like that. But I'm always a little sad when leaders don't necessarily broaden their horizons or do something kind of radical to change the business model that we know just isn't working. So I would say a little disappointed, but not extremely shocked, especially with the way 2020 went and meme stock and all of that, that there hasn't been much change.
I agree, Lindsay. I mean, that's the surprising part, right? That Ryan hasn't really done anything. That you would think with all the hype they had around the business, they would have taken crazy risks because they knew their core business was going to zero, right? Every short seller knew it was going to zero. The market knew it was going to zero. There was only upside for him to try crazy things. And if the only thing they did was like a little bit of crypto, which was maybe the dumbest of all things to do, it's really disappointing, right? Like it's extremely disappointing. It also proves that any retail investor who bought this stock deserved to have lost money on it because there was no chance this business was going to be turned around. It didn't feel like there was any chance of that. Matt says, "What up? We're back. There's a soccer game?" Question mark. Chris says, "Man, no one asks how Jimmy's doing."
I'm used to it, Chris.
The problem is because I do the podcast with Jimmy before this, and I do ask him how he's doing on the podcast. So you have to listen to both shows to get the full picture. Matt says GameStop hasn't done anything innovative in years. They were thinking of doing NFTs, and that's about all that has happened with that company. Yeah, agreed. They didn't do anything. It's the same that it always has been. Also agreed. I would argue the stores, if you've been in one recently, are even more depressing, I feel, than they were 2 or 3 years ago because they're just as irrelevant but more run down. Christian says, "So you mean to tell me I can't make 7,000% in one day on my stocks?" Yes, that is what we mean to tell you. Also says GameStop always had so much inventory with used games that they bought back for pennies on the dollar. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything they could have innovated on the used game side. The problem is with digital, that destroys that business completely. So, they had to do something totally out of the box. I think it was their only option, and instead they chose to do nothing.